What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gooner channel. Now, just under 2 weeks ago, I made a video entitled Manchester City are innocent, brackets, hopefully. And the reason I made the video was because I genuinely hope they're innocent. The fallout, should they be found guilty, is hard to contemplate. The idea that Manchester City might be relegated out of the Football League altogether, points docked, stripped of titles, that's not what any football fan really wants. We want to believe in the integrity of the sport and the fact that what you do on the pitch is reflected in the silverware you win. Now, the response to this video was kind of predictable. I had Manchester City fans applauding me for speaking out in their defence and putting my club loyalties to one side. And then, of course, I had the other comments. People telling me that they've broken the rules, they should be punished. Well, look, here's a really good example. This is from KK22383. Now, the comment begins with terrible argument / analysis, see points below, and then lists why I'm completely wrong. Now, part of this, it's clear that what I was trying to convey got lost somewhere in translation. It seems people are so angry at the very suggestion that Manchester City are innocent that they have to write really long messages to me to tell me exactly why Manchester City should be punished. And he starts his comment with point one being, they didn't play by the rules. Rules are there for everyone to be on a level playing field. If you break a rule, you should suffer the consequences. Go commit a crime, but because it happened 20 years ago, do it multiple times, but because you changed as a person, you're forgiven. These actions caused multiple rippling effects and had multiple repercussions. There's a lot to unpack there, but the first thing I think is really important. And the reason I'm doing this video is because I feel like there's a lot that we're all taking for granted. And the first thing that so many people are taking for granted, the cloud hanging over Manchester City, is that they are definitely guilty and they need to be punished. Now, I believe firmly in the core principle of our judicial system, which is that everybody accused of anything is innocent until proven guilty. So whether Manchester City are ultimately proven guilty or not, they at least at this point deserve us assuming their innocence. And I feel that very strongly because I think that's what justice is. You cannot just go around accusing people of being guilty of something they're charged with until there's been a judicial review, until there's been a process. Now, has that process dragged on too long? Perhaps, but what they're accused of is very serious financial malfeasance. If guilty, then there are key people who could face jail terms or should face jail terms. Now, the first thing I want to address in that comment is that at no point did I say that if Manchester City are guilty that they should be let off because it happened a long time ago. That's clearly not a sensible way of looking at it. There ought probably to be a statute of limitations, but, maybe you're looking at 20 or 30 years. But in this case, the Premier League doesn't offer a statute of limitations. And if you're found guilty of something 10, 15, 20 years ago, you are still liable to be punished for it. But I come back to my central point. There has to first be a process that determines guilt, and that has not happened yet. So talking about Manchester City as guilty is kind of odious to me. And that's one of the reasons I'm making this video. I think we can all agree with that.
If you're enjoying this video, but you are not planning to click like and subscribe to the Gooner channel, then that's fundamentally not okay.
If Arsenal were accused of something, I wouldn't expect to have to apologise until it had been proven. The onus must be on the accuser. So that's point one. But point two from the comment was that the rules exist to create a level playing field. And whilst that is usually true of laws and rules, it's absolutely not the case here. Profit and sustainability rules don't exist to level the playing field. Think about it for a moment. In their current incarnation, they allow that every single club, irrespective of financial income, must not spend over a certain amount. That amount being 105 million over a certain period. Now, of course, that doesn't level the playing field. Manchester United can afford to spend a lot more money out of the money they make through fantastic commercial deals than a club like Luton. And if we accept that it's fair that all teams can only spend a certain amount, then the ones who make more will always have more. Profit and sustainability rules were not brought in to level the playing field. And if they were, it would be ridiculous. But they weren't. They were brought in to prevent clubs being so badly run that they go bust, as Leeds so nearly did when they opted to borrow huge amounts of money to sustain a title bid that fell apart. And I think that's really sensible in a way. And I can see how, to some degree, that's sensible. After all, football clubs are incredibly important to their supporters and the communities they're in. And there should be some sort of protection to make sure that new owners don't just come in and rinse the whole club for its assets and let it fall into disrepair. A bit like the Glazers have done at Man United. But profit and sustainability rules exist principally because the British government, on the back of some high-profile clubs going into administration, started to suggest that they might have to get more involved in the running of football, and the FA sought to appease them by bringing in profit and sustainability rules. So it has nothing to do with the level playing field. Where is the benefit in preventing Manchester City's hugely wealthy ownership from deciding it wants to catch up with Manchester United by investing their own money to do so? And let's be honest, profit and sustainability are not going to prevent Manchester City going bust or Newcastle going bust, or for that matter, Manchester United or Chelsea. These are clubs that are never going to go bust. I did get a comment saying that you can't definitely know that. But look, seriously, if you think that Newcastle United, backed by the Saudi Investment Fund, have any realistic prospect of getting into so much trouble that they can't be bailed out, I think we're going to disagree on that one. And I would urge you to reconsider your point. The amount of money in football seems like a lot to the average person, but relative to the wealth of nation states, it's a drop in the ocean. In a normal business context, if there's a high street with 5 restaurants on it and one's doing considerably worse than the rest, and you buy it and you decide that you want to get rid of the head chef and bring in the world's best head chef, you want to sack all the staff and bring in the best staff, you want to put the best food on the menu, change the decor and invest in the infrastructure, there aren't rules to prevent you in case you go bust. That's just part of capitalism. You take your chance. If you win, you're rewarded with profits, and if you lose, now, I don't know why Sheikh Mansour bought Man City, but I'm guessing it was a profile-raising exercise and he wanted to own a football club, and very rich people can do what they like. Now, you might feel that shouldn't be the case, and perhaps you would rather we went for a more German model where every club has to have fans on the board. But that's not what I'm hearing people talking about here. What I'm hearing people talk about here is that these are rules and they mustn't break them, because the net result of Manchester City spending more money than they have is that they are cheating somehow. But there's another element to this again, which is that people are acting as if what Manchester City are accused of is directly responsible for their success on the pitch. And I think this needs to be unpacked a little bit. Let's start by looking at what they are actually accused of, because you hear 115 charges bandied around all the time. And look, don't get me wrong, I would dearly love Manchester City to fall away so that other teams have a chance, because they are incredibly well run with a fantastic squad of players, mentality monsters who are proven winners. And I don't think that's just because they spent the most money. But you have to look at what they're actually charged with and then decide for yourself how relevant that is to what they've been doing on the pitch. Let's break it down. First of all, of the 115 charges, 54 of them are failure to provide up-to-date financial accounts from the period 9-10 to 17-18 season. That's 54 of the 115 charges that are just failure to produce the correct and relevant financial information. Manchester City argue they're not obliged to do so. After all, if there's evidence they've done something wrong, that should be presented rather than just saying, show us everything you've done over the last 15 years and we'll decide if you've done something wrong. Now, I appreciate that when somebody refuses to show you the evidence that Manchester City are claiming will definitely exonerate them, there is a whiff of suspicion that surrounds that. And I think that's fair. You're allowed to be confident that Manchester City are guilty of something, but you haven't proven it yet and nobody has. So let's at least keep saying allegedly until it's proven. But the next big chunk of charges against them is 35 charges of failure to cooperate with the Premier League from 2011 to present. So 89 of the 115 charges are either that they didn't provide the correct financial accounting or they refused to cooperate fully. And I think we all know Manchester City have been refusing to cooperate fully. And again, that might point to some guilt on their part, but they're not charged with anything that they could deny yet, except that they don't feel that they should have to provide more information than they've been providing. Now, if they are guilty of these charges, by the way, it's still conceivably possible that they haven't done anything wrong. So they could be guilty of not cooperating or providing financial accounts. And when those accounts are scrutinised, there may be no wrongdoing. I don't know if that's the case. You don't know if that's the case. But so far, these charges are not that they've bribed officials or anything of that nature. Nothing that would tangibly affect what happens on the pitch. The third biggest chunk of charges against them are failure to provide reports for player compensation between the season 9-10 and 17-18. So this is the first time you start to see that actually they may be paying players more than they said they did. That could actually be true. I think that could be true. Chelsea have self-reported the exact same thing. And let's be honest, if Manchester City are guilty, Chelsea are guilty, we could lose both of these teams from the top flight. And in the case of Chelsea, I would quite welcome that. But I'd still be arguing in their defence until they're proven guilty. I really do believe in that system. I'd hate to live in a world where you were condemned as soon as you were charged with something. And I know I'm labouring the point, but it is a really important point that no one seems to want to talk about. So of the charges so far, we're at 103 charges which relate to whether or not Man City cooperated, opened their books, and they may, it's suggested and alleged, they may have paid their manager, Mancini, and some players more than they said they did. But again, more than they said they did because they could be conceivably because they didn't want to overspend against these regulations. And even if they're therefore guilty, what we're saying is that Manchester City have been paying players the same kind of amounts that Manchester United have been paying them. But because Manchester United have this global fan base and much longer history of success and far better commercial expertise, let's be honest, Man United have gotten a lot wrong in the last 20 years, but their commercial deals are outstanding. Manchester City, therefore, no one's even suggesting have spent more than Man United on player salaries. 7 of these charges are that they breached profit and sustainability regulations. And now the precedent has been set that if you are guilty of that, you should face points deductions. But they range from the season ending in 16 to the season ending in 18. So it's nearly 6 years ago. So would the points deducted be deducted retroactively or now or next season or the year after when this process might be finally over? And that was part of my point, that the ramifications of a guilty verdict might naturally entail that the punishment does not fit the crime. I'm not saying that if they're guilty, it happened so long ago it shouldn't count, as was suggested in the comment. I've never said that. I'm saying that we can all agree it will be very messy indeed to punish Pep Guardiola's treble winners for things that might have happened years before. And then people said to me, well, they've only got to where they are because they're allowed to spend this money. Well, Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool have only got where they are because they've been able to spend money. Again, another theme that I covered was this notion, this readily people will say that teams buy their success. This is difficult to prove in Manchester City's case because over the last 10 years, they've spent the 4th most in net transfer spend. Man United, Chelsea and Arsenal have all spent more in net transfer spend, and that's partly because we don't sell players as well as Manchester City do. They have, in the last 5 years, spent the 6th most in net transfer spend. So when people like the person in this comment said to me, of course they've bought their players. Yes, I understand that they have bought some of the best players in the world, but they've bought players like Kevin De Bruyne that other teams could have bought. And just last summer, we saw them try to sign Declan Rice and not be able to Arsenal. So it isn't all about the money they've spent. We're in danger if we just focus on these charges of potential financial malfeasance. We're in danger of overlooking the fact that they've been winning these games on the pitch. These players haven't been playing better because they're better paid. Because if that was the case, Paris Saint-Germain would have won a Champions League, and they haven't. Chelsea wouldn't be 11th. They're paying their players plenty, over 8-year contracts. To me, it feels an awful lot like we just want the monster that is Manchester City to be dead and buried, to go away, to leave the Premier League clear again for teams that used to win it to come back and win it. And as an Arsenal fan, as we go into tomorrow's match against Manchester City, I do hope that they lose. I'm still hoping that we beat them on the pitch, whatever they've spent. Just spending money isn't enough. I made the point in the video that you can't explain football just with money, or Coventry wouldn't be in the semi-final. And I was told, oh, you can't equate Coventry appearing in a cup, it's just a cup. I get that. I totally understand that Coventry aren't going to win the league. I was told that I was being naive, and that actually there's a direct correlation between money spent and success. And I think I've just demonstrated that is not the case. I also made the point in the video that Tottenham are London's most financially successful club at the moment. And someone said to me, oh, that's just happened. No, it hasn't just happened. Arsenal have been falling behind year on year because of our lack of involvement in the Champions League. But this is another point. Champions League involvement, and when you do well in it, garners you a huge amount of money, which you can use for transfers. So if unchecked, and if profit and sustainability is the only way that we have of checking this, then the rich clubs will continue to do better and better, and the poor clubs will be doing well just to stay in the league. So far, the teams punished for falling short of profit and sustainability have been Nottingham Forest, who spent more than they should have done when they came up because they could quickly see that they weren't going to stay up if they didn't. And a lot of this centres on the fact that they held on to Brennan Johnson for slightly too long and didn't meet the arbitrary deadline for profit and sustainability, which occurs before the end of the transfer window, which is in itself mind-blowingly silly. And Everton, who gambled on the fact that they were going to be able to write off more of their expenses than they were able to. At Arsenal, when we got the Cronkies and we all wanted Usmanov, it was because we wanted someone to come and spend an unlimited amount to give us those riches on the field that would take us to the next level. We wanted that, don't deny it. It turns out we got away with a lucky escape because the Cronkies and a sustainable model is probably better suited to the current financial fair play regulations in Europe and the profit and sustainability regulations in this country. And it puts us in a safer spot. I remember 20 years ago when Roman Abramovich came into Chelsea saying, one day your chickens will come home to roost, and then watched for 20 years as they won everything ahead of them. And I don't remember anyone complaining. It turns out, according to the current Chelsea owners, that they have been cheating. I will stand by several of the points I've made here. Firstly, Manchester City are not guilty until they're proven guilty. Secondly, the profit and sustainability rules have nothing to do with a level playing field. I would welcome some rules to introduce a level playing field. It might make the whole sport more interesting to watch, but we are a long way from agreeing on what that might be. And finally, the idea that you can just go and buy the success that Manchester City have had leaves a sour taste in my mouth, because it means there are so many people unwilling to accept that Manchester City have created a phenomenal team. And they haven't spent as much as some of the teams that are wasting away and falling apart in doing so. So let me know in the comments how mad you think I am, how wrong I am, and let's have a debate. On Wednesday night, I will be hosting a live debate on the Gooner channel. And if you want to come on and debate me, let's do that. Because I'm not spending the rest of the evening typing out replies to comments that are really poorly written to begin with. And what really got me is at the end, he called me mate with air quotes. I'm not your mate. I don't even know what that means. Mate. Unnecessary. Anyway, mate, hope this has helped you to understand what I was originally talking about. And for the rest of you, let's just focus on football for a bit, shall we? We go to the Etihad tomorrow. I think we're going to win. I'm doing a live just before to discuss the lineups and predictions. Join me there and let's have a fantastic Easter Sunday. Till I see you tomorrow. Be lucky. Lots of love.
Go, go!